Welcome to Jabberwock Island. This island, that is located somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, is known as a paradise of summer and attracts a lot of tourists. There's also an archipelago consisting of 5 bigger islands connected by a smaller central island. During the events of the tragedy, Jabberwock Island would be forgotten by the rest of the world and end up being completely uninhabited. This result allowed the organization known as the Future Foundation to claim and protect it after they had found it. Jabberwock Island would also be the setting for a virtual reality project titled Neo World Program, which was aimed at deleting the effects of the ultimate despair on Class 77B. That purpose would ultimately be denied as an AI of Junko Enoshima was uploaded into the Neo World Program, which started the dreaded Killing School trip. In the Killing School trip, 16 students were promised freedom from Jabberwock Island, but at the cost of killing one of their classmates and not being discovered as the culprit. Which is the most brutal death in Super Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair? Well, it's not easy for me to come to a conclusion like I did for True Happy Havoc. So instead of me just giving you an answer straight away, let's take a look at it. My mind will always tell me that one of Monokuma's dreadful executions is more brutal than the way that the characters are murdered by one another. This is because Monokuma has no limit on how he will torture the victim. He will do anything his heart desires when it comes to killing these teenagers, you know? Wonder where he gets everything he needs for them, and I mean, I guess it's why you're investigating. But it's like, come on, like, how do you get a fucking attack helicopter? What the fuck? Anyway, with that in mind, let us look at the executions in the game. In order, we have Deep Fried Terutero, Terutero Hanamuru's execution, One Woman Army, Pekko Pekoyama's execution, Bye Bye Ouchies, Mikan Sumiki's execution, Gundam Tanaka Stampede, Gundam Tanaka's execution, and Please Insert Coin, Chiaki Nanami's execution. We can automatically rule out Mikan's execution due to 2 factors. The first one is the nature of the execution. She appears to be on a rocket that looks like a human arm, and she is launched into space while on the rocket. You don't get to see any brutality, she's just being, launched into who knows where. And the other factor is, she really seems to be enjoying herself, like, a bit too much when this is happening. We can assume that is because she regained her memories of being the ultimate despair and for some reason loves the absolute living crap out of Junko Enoshima. So that leaves us with 4 more executions to look at. The next one we can eliminate is Gundam Tanaka Stampede. There's a few reasons for this one. The first and probably the most prominent reason is because Gundam had accepted the possibility of death ever since he engaged in combat with Nekomaru Nidai, before any murder ever took place. Next, Gundam was ready and had accepted his loss of the class trial after being found out by his classmates. Then you got the execution. The execution consisted of him being trampled over by a horde of animals after he had put his 4 dark davas of destruction somewhere safe so that their lives would not be forfeit along with his. He also cast a spell to protect him too. That's right, folks, he wasn't protecting himself, he was protecting his 4 dark davas of destruction. Afterwards, he was seen being brought into heaven by what we believe was his animals that he had previously taken care of. His execution was more warm-hearted, rather than super duper nasty torture. So now we're left with 3 of the executions. And while I hate to say this, with every fiber of my being, the next one to eliminate is Chiaki Nanami's. While Chiaki ended up becoming one of my favorite classmates, her execution cannot be called the most brutal one of them all. The clearest reason for it is, well, because in the Neo World project, she is an artificial intelligence. This is why, when she is killed, she does not show any blood. She also does not show any hesitation before being executed, as she happily goes along with Monomi, because she knows in doing so that she is saving the others. While the nature of being shot down by a spaceship, being chased by a Pac-Man, and having your life ended because somebody needed to make the road complete, being emotionally prepared for just being squished is more than enough reasons not to call it the most brutal. But it sure as hell was the most brutal for my heart. Chiaki. So this leaves us with Pekko and Terutero. Now, Terutero has a strong argument in his favor, with it being the first execution. There is always a show for that one in order to present and instill fear into the remaining students. Oh, and also, you know, the player. You know, the person sitting behind the screen, like, playing the game. That one. That's what I'm talking about. Grabbed by a chain, Terutero is pulled away and strapped to a pole, which is located on the shore of a beach. Monokuma, piloting a helicopter not too far away from the location, fires a bunch of missiles at Terutero, which covers him in egg and breadcrumbs. Monokuma then uses the helicopter to fly over and grab Terutero. He then proceeds to direct the helicopter over an active volcano and drops Terutero in to become something you might find if KFC started putting human on the menu. Not only was this tragic, but Terutero kills the ultimate imposter, just because he wants to prevent a potential disaster. This disaster was Nagito claiming he would use the party as a way to initiate the killing game. He thought that he was getting rid of Nagito, who was supposed to collect the knife from underneath the table. This was revealed when Nagito was sent to the old building on cleaning duty. While preparing the building for his plans, Nagito encountered Terutero and decided to reveal everything to him because he's crazy. One last point for our ultimate cook is the fact that Monokuma promised to tell whoever started the killings a piece of information about the outside world. Terutero wanted to know the status of his mother, as his final wish, but Monokuma sent him to execution without that information. No matter how much Terutero would fight for it, he was denied and sent to his death. So that's pretty brutal, right? What about the last one? Pekko. Pekko's case starts all the way back with the Twilight Syndrome murder case game that Monokuma created to incentivize the next murder. The game tells the event of someone killing Fuyuhika's younger sister at Hope Peak Academy, and that Mahiru, Hiyoko, Ibuki, and Mikan are all involved with the situation. Pekko saw this as an opportunity to fill her purpose and get her master out of the island, all while claiming revenge for the death of Fuyuhiko's younger sister. This plan would end up backfiring as Pekko was ultimately the one who committed the murder. Pekko insisted the entire time that she was Fuyuhiko's tool, to be used when it suited him, but this was false. Fuyuhiko had an emotional attachment to Pekko, which he admitted moments prior to her execution. In other words, this allowed Pekko to be considered a human being rather than what she viewed herself as, which was just a hitwoman. This would only make it harder for Pekko, who wanted to show complete emotional resolve during her execution. Her execution, the one-woman army, starts with her fighting off an army of robots, while Monokuma is controlling her in the background with something resembling a voodoo doll. Fuyuhiko is seen in the background trying to save Pekko from this onslaught. As he presses his way through the robots, he finds his way to Pekko, who accidentally slashes the right side of his face while attempting to fight off a robot. Pekko then pulls him in closer as she gets slain by the robots. Pekko dies in this execution, not knowing if she was successful in protecting Fuyuhiko's life, and also while she is completely aware that she damaged the most important human being in her life. The conclusion I am drawn to here is that Pekko got executed in a fiendish way the moment she was finally fully acknowledged by Fuyuhiko as being human. So the conclusion for the executions is that Pekko suffered the worst fate. Her plan backfired in more ways than one. But what about the murders? Usually the murders don't stand out in comparison to how Monokuma goes full force with his execution. There is one murder that is on the more brutal side though. This one was a lot more elaborate than the others and had to rely a little bit on luck. That's right, we're talking about the murder of Nagito Komaeda. Nagito's death was actually a suicide that was ruled a murder. His plan to make it look as though he had tortured himself and, by using his luck, have a certain someone throw the poison that he had placed into one of the fire grenades so that it would be the cause of his death. He wanted it to look like he had done it to himself, as he wanted the traitor to survive after discovering that their class was part of the ultimate despair. Nagito was found with a spear lodged in his chest, stab marks all over his legs, a large cut wound on his left arm, a knife that penetrated through his right hand, and duct tape over his mouth. Not only this, but Nagito set the warehouse up in a way that opening the door would mean the curtain would catch on fire. Through this, he would hope that the rest of his cohort would try to extinguish the fire by using the fire grenades located in the break room of the plush factory, and in doing so, throw the poison he had snuck into one of the grenades. Not only did he wait for the poison, it would also mean that he would let go of the spear that he was holding and have that puncture his stomach as well. He basically sat there, wounded himself, and waited for death's door. What a way to go out. Congratulations, Nagito, you did it. You fucking killed yourself. Way to go. So while both Pekko and Nagito were willing to die, the way they both died was extremely brutal. The question is, which one is more brutal than the other? The answer lies in which one has points in both the physical and emotional side of the spectrum. This is where the argument for Nagito's death falls short. Nagito didn't know whether his plan would succeed or fail, and had a video recording for either side of the result. If his plan had failed, it would have disappointed him for sure, but nonetheless, he still gave answers for the others if they had managed to get through the class trial. Compare this to Pekko, who was finally completely humanized by the person that was closest to her heart, and you are able to see which one truly had it worse in their final moments. On a side note, also how Pekko's execution affected Fuyuhiko for the rest of the game as well. Pekko Pekoyama not only had to be sliced to pieces at the hand of Monokuma, she also had to watch as she injured the most important thing in her life. She died without ever knowing whether or not he got out of the situation that he never had to be involved with. Congratulations, Pekko! You had the most brutal death in Danganronpa 2, with Nagito and Terutero not being too far behind you. I don't know whether that's something to celebrate though. I mean, you kinda died. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Resident Unleashed. This was the most brutal death in Super Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. Feel free to like the video, subscribe, and give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's time to see what V3 has installed for me.